I polled you guys on Instagram and asked you which mouse you prefer for recording studio duties. And well over 1,000 of you voted, which is crazy, but the results were really interesting and not what I expected. Hey everyone, I'm Cool Caparoon. Thank you for stopping by for another video. Now this started as a personal journey where I was just wanting to revisit the different options and make sure that I was using the best thing for me personally. Now something that is really important is that I have spent over 1,000 hours on every mouse that we're going to talk about in this video today. I wanted to make sure that I was 100% used to them before making a decision like this. And at the end of this video, I'm gonna choose one of these and explain to you why I chose this particular option. As always, there will be links to these in the description below, more on that later. We'll also get into the results of the poll and which ones are most popular that you guys are using the most. Now there's a million different mice out there, but there's kind of 4 common ones that seem to be like the staples that everyone in a recording studio environment uses. The first one is the Apple Magic Mouse. The next one is the Logitech MX Master 3S. The next one is the Apple Trackpad. Now, I think a lot of what we're going to talk about with the Apple Trackpad could probably go to any trackpad, but I have the Apple one, so that's what we're going to use as a reference here. We're also going to talk about the Kensington Expert Mouse Trackball. Now, I don't have that one in front of me right at the moment. More on that in a bit. So let's just go over pros and cons and features of all 4 of these. Let's start with the Apple Magic Mouse. Now, first of all, this is $79, which makes it the cheapest option on the table. In the pros category, we've got gestures where you can swipe your finger, you can scroll in all different directions just with touch, and you can swipe and throw stuff around, and the gestures are very cool on the Apple Magic Mouse. Now there's a category in this that I'm going to talk about in a way of cursor repeatability or cursor confidence. When I just grab a mouse and I just throw to a location that I'm looking at on the screen, how accurate is that? How repeatable is that motion? And how confident am I in getting to the exact spot that I want to go? This is a big deal for me because the more confident I am and the more repeatable that cursor movement is, the more the mouse can just disappear from my conscious, from my subconscious. The more I can just work and not be thinking about the mouse. And to me, this is a big deal. So the only way that I can come up with to describe this is cursor repeatability and cursor confidence. On the Apple Magic Mouse, it is very, very high. It feels very good. And as you move across your mouse pad, it feels like it's really moving in exactly how far that you're intending for it to move with your physical motion. The click pressure with the Magic Mouse is, in my opinion, really good. I can rest my finger on it and it will not click with the full weight of my finger. However, just a tiny bit more pressure and then you click. It is very, very low profile. It's very small, very easy to pack up in a backpack. I find it personally very comfortable. It has really good battery life. I charge this once a month, and as long as I give it a full charge once a month, it's been perfectly fine. I leave it on round the clock 7 days a week. It is very fast charging, and about 5 minutes worth of charging, if it does happen to die on you in the middle of a session, about 5 minutes of charging will get you through that session. There is no USB dongle needed with the Apple Magic Mouse. It connects right to the Bluetooth on your computer. Now for the cons. The charge port being on the bottom of the mouse has got to be one of the most insane things I've ever seen a company do with any product ever. That's the dumbest place to put the charge port on a mouse because you cannot use the mouse while you're charging it. You have to lay it on its side or upside down to charge it. Huge con. Another con is it's not as customizable. Of course, in the Apple software, you can turn on and off right click and you can change gestures and all kinds of stuff and obviously tracking speed and whatever, but it doesn't have a bunch of extra buttons, so not nearly as customizable as any of the other options here. Next up, the Logitech MX Master 3S. Now, this is the Mac version. They have dedicated versions for both Mac and PC. let's start with the pros. It is by far the most customizable of all the options here. You have so many buttons. You have a thumb button, and then you have 2 more thumb side buttons. You've got a thumb scroll wheel to go side to side. You have got left click and right click. You have got an additional button up here. You've got the scroll wheel, which is a button, and these are weighted scroll wheels. So like you can just see if you can hear this. So you can just throw a scroll and it will scroll all the way to the end of the page automatically, which is very cool. This also has a perfectly acceptable battery life, a good long battery life, and I was charging this once a month while I was using it. Now, it doesn't charge as fast as the Apple mouse, as the Magic Mouse, but the USB-C charging port is on the front of it, so you can use this while it's charging. It has a very ergonomic design, like the way your palm lays on it is very nice. There's a major flaw in the ergonomic design, and we'll get there, but at first use, when you just put your hand on it, it does feel very comfortable and very nice and holds like your knuckles and your palm pretty well. It feels good. Okay, so let's get on to the cons of the Logitech MX Master 3S. The biggest con for me personally is the button softness. If I rest the weight of my fingers on either of these buttons, it is clicking. I like that it's silent, but it is real soft. I cannot just relax my hand on this mouse without it clicking. So even though it is very ergonomic feeling in its shape, I'm still forced to hold my fingers up at all times in order to keep from accidental clicks happening. And unfortunately, because I have to hold my fingers up off of it at all times, the ergonomic design, like the advantage that I would have given this because of its ergonomics, kind of cancels out, unfortunately, because the click button stiffness is just, it's way too soft. When it comes to scrolling, either with the thumb wheel for horizontal or with the finger wheel for vertical, the scrolling action has a much lower resolution than the Apple mouse. It's much more jittery and it scrolls in bigger chunks. It's less fine movement. And so that's definitely a con. It has very good repeatability or cursor confidence. I really like how it feels in the cursor department. It is very, very slightly behind the Magic Mouse, in my opinion, for that one particular metric. The Logitech MX Master 3S goes for $99, and it does not need a dongle. This connects, at least the Mac version, connects right to your Mac and does not need a USB dongle. Let's talk about the one that I don't have here, and that is the Kensington Expert Mouse Trackball. Now, these go for between $91 and $171. The higher end of the price point is with the wrist pad, and in my opinion, the wrist pad is absolutely a necessity. So that means that this is the most expensive mouse that I've used. Unfortunately, I don't own one, and I wasn't gonna buy one for this video, but let me explain to you how much I've used it. Lester Estelle, who you guys have seen on the channel, has one at his studio, and I have tracked drums for hundreds and hundreds of songs there and used that mouse on hundreds and hundreds of songs, as well as doing dozens and dozens and dozens of sessions in big commercial facilities around town like Blackbird Studios. All the rooms at Blackbird have this trackball, and so I have spent well over 1,000 hours on this trackball, which I feel like is more than enough to get used to it. But this is an obvious tell as to which one I'm absolutely not going to choose, and it is this Kensington trackball. So I didn't feel like I wanted to go spend $171 just to show it to you here on the video, but I still want to give you all the pros and cons, and maybe this fits your workflow perfectly. Now, one of the pros is that it is stationary, and so the concept, at least, is that it has less wrist movement because you are not moving a mouse around. You are moving the ball around on top of the mouse, and so the argument is that it's less wrist movement. I don't really find it to be a significant reduction in wrist movement enough to make a difference, but that is one of the points of this mouse. It has significantly more customizable options than the Apple mouse, than the Magic Mouse, in terms of customizable buttons and different actions. It has quite the smooth ball feel. I can't say that with a straight face. No, as the ball on top, it feels like it's floating. It's like a floating ball in your hand. but it does feel very smooth, that's for sure. And if you run it at a very low, slow cursor speed, tracking speed, then it is very precise in terms of your ability to place it exactly where you want it to. Now let's get on to the cons, because unfortunately this particular mouse has the largest list of cons in my opinion. Some of these are objective, some of these are subjective. The first con is that in my opinion, it's the least ergonomic. The wrist pad is an absolute must, because if you don't have the wrist pad, you are literally holding your hand like this the entire time. And that, to me, is very fatiguing for my wrist. The wrist pad makes it better, but it is still the most fatiguing of these options for me personally. And it's mostly because even with the mouse pad, even if you have a mouse pad to rest your wrist on, it's still like you have to scroll. If you have the speed turned up fast enough where you can just roll like this and get from one side of the screen to the other on the trackball, then it's very hard to be precise. And if you slow it down enough where it's easy to be precise, then you have to do multiple runs across the ball in order to get from one side of the screen to the other. In addition to this, there is a single dial right around the ball, around the trackball, and that is your scroll wheel, which means you only have a single direction scroll on this mouse. You may be able to set up a custom button to change it from horizontal scrolling to vertical scrolling. I have not tested that. Maybe that's an option, but even still, it is by far the worst option in terms of scrolling here. So much so that I don't even use it. I take the trackball and I go down to the slider along the window and actually drag it from one side to the other or up and down. And this greatly slows down workflow to me personally. Every other mouse in this category and every other mouse that we're talking about has a two-directional scrolling ability. This is the only mouse that has a single direction scrolling ability. In the next con, unfortunately, you have to run this mouse either wired or the wireless version takes AA batteries. It is not rechargeable, or at least I could not find a rechargeable option. So that means you have to keep AA's around or you have to have a AA battery charger. Either way, just not as convenient as these other options on the table. The next con is that it does take a USB dongle if you're using the wireless Bluetooth version, which means you're taking up an additional USB slot on your computer. It's the only option of these that needs a USB dongle to operate. The last con is that it's the most expensive option at $171 with the wrist pad, which again, in my opinion, is an absolute necessity. It is almost $100 more than the Magic Mouse, and it is significantly more expensive than the trackpad and coming up on double of the Logitech. Okay, let's get to the Apple trackpad. Now I have the version here in black. Most of us are probably really used to trackpads because all of us probably have laptops that we spend a lot of time on. So not much in this might surprise you, but I want to go over the pros and cons for those of you thinking about using these for your desktop computer in your studio, because I was really surprised at how many people in my poll said they use a trackpad. So the Apple trackpad is $149, so it's the second most expensive option here. It is fairly customizable in terms of two-finger scrolling in any direction. It's one of the best things about the trackpad is its scrolling ability. It's fairly customizable in terms of if you want a click to be just a tap or a press and click. The gestures are fairly customizable. There's a lot of different gestures. So it is definitely more customizable than the Apple Magic Mouse. Not quite as customizable as the Logitech. And I would say, in terms of customizability, I would say it's on par with the Kensington Expert Mouse trackball. However, the things that you can customize here make it significantly more usable than the Kensington, in my personal opinion. It has a plenty long enough battery life. Again, once a month charging was totally fine for me, but it does have the USB-C port on the front here, which means you can very easily charge it while you're working, or you can just leave it plugged in all the time if you want. It does not have any USB dongle. It works just over Bluetooth, connects right to your computer. It has very precise control once you get used to it. Now, there's not quite as big of a learning curve because all of us are used to laptops, but once you get used to it and get it dialed in, get the settings dialed in, it is very precise control. And I think the learning curve for using a trackpad full time would probably be pretty short because most of us are used to working on laptops. Now for the cons, I think for some people it might be hard on the wrist because just like the trackball and the Logitech, you do kind of have to hold your wrist up off of it at all times. You're constantly having to pick your wrist up off of it. You never really fully rest your hand on it. My hand fully rested on it will click it, and a single finger will not. Some people might have an issue with that. I personally don't find it fatiguing, but I could see some people finding it fatiguing. The last con is it is the second most expensive mouse option here. So I want to go over the poll of what you guys chose, what you guys are actually using, because it was very interesting to me how it broke down and how you all were split up. And then I want to rank these from my least favorite to my most favorite, and then I will tell you which one I'm going to continue using. But I will put links to each one of these in the description down below, along with links to every single other piece of gear that I use, and almost all of those links go to Sweetwater. So anytime you guys need any piece of musical gear whatsoever, you can jump on any one of my videos, click on any one of the links in the description of any video. It costs you nothing extra, but it really goes a long ways to help me make videos like this, because I had to buy all these and I had to spend about 4,000 hours working on the different options before I felt comfortable making a video like this. So your support means a whole bunch if you guys use those links anytime you need to purchase anything. And I just want to thank Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. Okay, so let's go over the results of the poll that I did on Instagram. By the way, if you're not following me on Instagram, there's a link to my Instagram down below as well. I'm always posting behind the scenes stuff. I'm always posting what videos are coming up, what gear I'm working on. I'm always posting on Instagram. So follow me on there if you want to be involved in this sort of stuff. 4,208 people saw this Insta story, and the votes are as followed. In last place was something else, another option that I didn't have listed. In third place was a trackball. Now I put just generic trackball. The Kensington Expert Mouse trackball is by far the most popular trackball, but I just put trackball. That was 324 votes, and 23% of the results were on a trackball. The Magic Mouse got second place with 379 votes and 26% of you using the Apple Magic Mouse. And by far the winner in terms of what you guys are using is the Logitech, with 39% of the vote, 556 votes for the Logitech. Now in the something else category, a whole bunch of those people were saying that they were using a trackpad. And that was what was kind of surprising to me, that somewhere in the 20% range of you were actually using trackpads. I didn't think it would be that high. I thought it'd be 5 or 10% of you were using trackpads. It's also interesting to see to me that the trackball was the third place option, because you go into commercial studios and it's what just about all commercial studios have, is that Kensington trackball. Okay, so let's rank them myself. In fourth and last place is the Kensington trackball. And it's for all of the reasons that I've already mentioned. The ergonomics, they don't resonate with me. I don't find it very precise. I don't find it very comfortable. It's the most fatiguing option. The fact that it only has a single directional scroll wheel instead of a bi-directional scrolling situation that's a deal breaker for me personally. It's also, with the wrist pad, it's the most expensive one here. And again, I have spent, even though it's not on the table, I've spent well over 1,000 hours on this mouse. Tied for second place is an interesting one, because I really, these two have their pros and cons, and I couldn't really pick a clear dedicated winner between these two in terms of how I enjoyed using them. But tied for second place, the Logitech MX Master 3S and the Apple Trackpad. So I think to keep this shorter, because this is already a long, deep video, let's just talk about the reasons why these two didn't win. For me, it's two things on the Logitech. One, the fact that if I just relax my hand, I'm clicking both of the buttons. That's kind of a deal breaker to me. The fact that that I have to constantly hold my fingers up and be careful not to even tap these buttons, or it is a click. That's rough for me personally. The next thing is the resolution of the scrolling. It is a bit notchy and a bit chunky when you're using the scroll wheels in either direction, and there's not really any way to refine that or make that smoother. It's not a deal breaker. The scrolling isn't a deal breaker, but that's why, those are the two issues as to why it didn't win for me. With the Apple Trackpad, it doesn't have either of those issues. It's very smooth with the scrolling. The gestures are great. I find it plenty precise to use. It was totally fine to me. I just, after using it for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks to make sure that I was making the right decision, I just prefer a traditional style mouse more. It's not to say it's bad. I would probably be inclined to use it over the Logitech because there's just less cons to me, but I decided to tie these because I do like having a physical mouse. But both of these I think are honestly really great options if they fit your needs. In first place for me personally, the Apple Magic Mouse. While I absolutely despise the charging port being on the bottom, the fact that it has such a long battery life and the fact that 5 minutes of charging will get it through a session if it happens to die in the middle of a session, and the fact that I just charge it about once a month overnight, and it never dies on me, and I never really have to think about it. So yes, the charging port on the bottom is crazy. That's insane. But it has not been a hindrance for me personally. The gestures of scrolling, being able to scroll diagonally, up, down, side to side, in a circle if you want, the gesturable scrolling, single finger scrolling, is just, it's the best to me. It's the best scrolling option there is. And when I'm digging through, whether I'm on the mix window or the edit window, when I've got hundreds of tracks in a session, being able to scroll like that is a big deal. And in the same way that with the Logitech, I can just snap that scroll wheel and it will go all the way to the end, the same thing it applies for the Apple Magic Mouse. If I just quick swipe, like smack it real hard, like real fast like that, it will go all the way to the other end, regardless of if I'm going up, down, or side to side. In addition to that, the click being just the right pressure where I can rest my finger completely on it and it will not click, but just the tiniest bit of additional pressure makes it click is great. And then the real one is the cursor placement, repeatability, confidence level. There's something about the way that this works. When I move it, it goes exactly how far I think it should every single time without fail. It's very, very repeatable, and it just feels a little bit smoother. Now, the ergos to me aren't an issue because I keep these fingers on the table and my thumb on the table and on the side of it. And so I'm like, I can just rest my hand. I'm not having to hold my wrist up because they're resting on these fingers, and I'm resting my first finger on the mouse itself, and I'm just moving around. So there is zero strain on my wrist for me personally. I know some other people have a problem with the ergonomics of this, but I do not. I find it very, very comfortable. And as a bonus, it's the cheapest one here by a significant margin. $20 cheaper than the Logitech, $70 cheaper than the Trackpad, and $100, almost $100 cheaper than the Kensington. So don't forget, there's links down below for all of these, and I really want to hear your feedback. First of all, what are your thoughts on all this? Secondly, how many of these have you tried? And thirdly, if you've tried a handful of them, or even if you haven't, which one's your favorite? What system are you using? I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching and joining in. Don't forget to subscribe, leave me a comment, hit me a thumbs up if you haven't yet, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.